What's up, guys? Welcome back into the Ballroom Podcast. This is episode 11. I'm your host, Rohan and Arav, and as always, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arav. Arav, what's going on?
I'm good, Rohan. We had some quite interesting game fives
Very.
to discuss today. Should we get straight into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start out with our first blowout of the game fives. Sixers at Heat. The Heat won this one 120-85. A 35-point blowout, and they now lead the series 3-2. And in this one, I mean, the Heat just out-hustled. They outdid everything against the Sixers in this one. They shot 54% from the field. They out-rebounded the Sixers 46-36. They outscored the Sixers 15-6 on fast break points. And they were just everywhere. It was just typical Heat fashion, the way that they played. They were hustling on offense and on defense. It was just clamping the Sixers. Held the Sixers to just 85 points. Yeah, I mean, the Sixers only shot 36.5% from the field, 28% from three. So you could just tell, like, he obviously were making them uncomfortable with their defense. And then on offense, they were just racking up the points. They had 7 players in double figures. Jimmy Butler led them with 23 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. Max Strus was huge for them as well. 19 points and 10 boards. He had 4 threes to go along with it. And Gabe Vincent had 15. Oladipo had 13. Bam had 12. Tyler Hero had 10. PJ had 10. Like, everyone was scoring in this one. And even our boy Duncan Robinson
Shout out to the long shot again.
Time. Yeah, finally got some playing time.
Finally, it's
after
about time.
not really playing in the series, only a bit of garbage time. He hit a 3, so everyone really got to eat in this one. Everyone really got to play because it was a blowout, so they were just throwing in this the people at the end of the bench. So good win for the Heat, but obviously they just took care of business at home. And like the Sixers just really didn't come to play in this one. They were able to just wipe them out the stadium, and now they have 2 chances to close it out. First in Game 6 in Philly, and then also in Game 7 in Miami if needed.
Yeah, and I mean, just a great all-around team performance for the Heat. That's exactly what they needed. Bouncing back in Game 5. Hope in Miami. That's in a critical Game 5 that they kind of needed to win at home. And for the Sixers, I think, just like you said, just an awful game all around. They were low energy, starting with Joel Embiid all the way to the end of the bench. Showed no effort. They didn't come to play despite it. They were perfectly in the series. It was 2-2. It was Game 5 on the road. Like, I feel like every team would show super high energy. They would be ready to play. They would bring it. But the Sixers, just like, they were lackadaisical. They seemed lethargic. They seemed tired. They didn't have any energy at all. Which is very unexpected.
I think Chuck said it best in this one. Like, they were talking about how, like, Doc Rivers was, like, having to implore the Sixers to play harder and just play with some fight in this game when they were down double digits early. And like Chuck was saying, like, that if your coach is having to tell you to play hard in a Game 5 when it's 2-2 in the second round of the playoffs, like, on the road, like, that's just not a good sign for the team. It just shows, like, the team wasn't prepared. And they didn't want this game. They didn't look like they wanted it. And the Heat really just were more physical. And they just wanted it more. They outplayed them. And obviously fatigue probably plays a bit into it as well. Obviously we know about the Heat culture, right? Everyone's in shape. If you're not in shape, you're really just not that's just the Heat way. You got to be in shape to be on their team. And so the Sixers, like, starting with Joel Embiid, like you said, right? He was low energy. He's been banged up. Obviously, he's pretty exhausted with what he's having to do for the Sixers team on a nightly basis, and that kind of just carried over to the rest of the team.
Yeah, it could be the MVP like snub, quote unquote. I feel like Jokic deserved that one, but Embiid obviously was probably a little upset about that, and it could have been part of the reason why he was low energy and stuff like that. They were saying it. Chuck was saying on Inside the NBA that could be a reason why he didn't have as much energy. He didn't really come to play, and his team followed Embiid. And he said in his post game interview that he didn't he didn't really care about it as much. Jokic deserved it. But then he also talked about how, oh, I've done everything in the last 2 years. What more could I do? So he's also
Hmm.
complaining a little. I feel like it definitely is on his mind. Um, which is a reason why I think they should just announce the MVP like after the season ends. Like they used to
Yeah,
do that. So it just like gets in your head. Um,
definitely.
and he ended only with 17 points and 5 rebounds. Got hit in the face again. It looked awful. He was in serious pain. Somehow he stayed in the game. So props to him. It shows that he wants to win. He's hungry, but he just needs to show the intensity and bring the energy to back up his want to win.
Exactly. And he just wasn't aggressive on offense in this one. And you could tell he only took 12 shots in this one. So he's got to be dominant for the Sixers to have a chance to win. Because even if he's not making shots, but he's dominant and he's sort of going for dominating the paint, it's sucking in the defense in the paint. So he's able to get shooters wide open. So he's just got to assert himself and be an offensive threat. That way his
Mhm.
teammates are going to have open looks. And we saw that in games 3 and 4 when players like Danny Green were having huge games. He had a massive game in Philly, and same with Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. Like all of them they were so much more free on offense. That's because
Exactly.
Joel Embiid's a threat. And you can see in games 1 and 2, like when Joel Embiid's not there, there's more attention on these role players and on the other starters. So him just being a presence, like we talked about earlier, like him being a presence is such a huge thing for them, and that starts with him being aggressive on offense and on defense too.
Yeah, definitely. And also, um, along with Embiid, James Harden couldn't follow up his amazing game 4 performance in game 5. He kind of just looked the same as he had been prior to game 4, and maybe even worse. He ended with only 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Which is just like as we talked about before, there's the whole team didn't have energy. They didn't really come to play. So you can't expect to beat a 1 seed Heat team who's really hungry and everyone is in shape and everyone wants to win when you have such low intensity and only score 85 points as well.
Exactly. And yeah, obviously they'll need to bounce back in game 6 to avoid elimination in Philly. And it starts with Embiid and Harden as their star players. Like they need to assert themselves in the game. They need to have bounce back games in game 6, and that's going to help everyone else sort of get loose and start making shots and be aggressive on offense. And obviously we see what they're capable of in games 3 and 4. They were right in the series. They were the better team. They didn't match the intensity of the Heat, and that's what the Heat are going to do. They're going to keep fighting. They're going to keep playing hard. And if you don't match that, then they're just going to run you out the gym.
Yeah, exactly. In game 6, they just need to bounce back in Philly to avoid an elimination. Obviously, starts with Embiid and Harden leading them. They're gonna set the intensity for the whole team. So if they can show intensity and show hunger, the whole team is gonna reflect that and show that as well. And hopefully they'll just have bounce back games because if they do, then I feel like the whole team will. Um, because if they want it, then the whole team will want it, and hopefully they can perform in game 6 and play and erase this game and just like play typical Sixers basketball like they did in games 3 and 4.
For sure. Well, yeah, definitely be an interesting one in game 6, especially in an elimination game.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it. Next, we got the Phoenix Suns, or the Dallas Mavericks at the Phoenix Suns. The Suns won this one 110-80 in another blowout, and now they lead the series 3-2. They bounced back at home to win a crucial game 5, and great job bouncing back and winning this critical game 5 at home for the Suns. The Mavericks got off to a hot start, but eventually they cooled down, just like every team is bound to cool down, like we've seen with the Grizzlies and the Warriors. Grizzlies seem to get to off start every game. Hot start every game. The Warriors seem to cool them off. And the Mavericks they were like ahead the whole almost the entire first half. The Suns came back and went up only 3, 49-46 at halftime. So it looked like it was going to be a really close game. And Rohan, I bet we both probably expected that it was going to be a close game, right?
Yeah, exactly. I thought out the gate the Mavs were like super aggressive. They were making their shots on offense. They were getting good looks, and they were playing hard on defense. And I think sort of once the Suns kind of settled into it and they sort of took the lead at the half, like I think that's kind of when if you're not leading at the half in a road game in the playoffs, I think the TNT guys were talking about it. Like it's super difficult to sort of claw your way back, and just psychologically, even though it was a 3-point game, being down at half is completely different than being up. So I think the Mavs kind of like had to hold on to that lead in that first half for them to sort of have the belief that they can pull it off on the road. And I think once they didn't have that and they came out flat in the third quarter and the Suns were feeding off the crowd, like it's really hard to sort of, that's just an uphill like climb when you're on the road and Suns are clicking like they were on offense. They couldn't really miss, and they were getting unbelievable stops on defense as well, making the Mavs uncomfortable. Mavs weren't getting the same looks they were getting in the first half. So I think they just needed to kind of hold on to it in the first half. They kind of let it slip in the end of the second quarter, and that kind of bled into the third quarter, in which the Suns just completely dominated.
Yeah, definitely. They just completely outplayed the Mavericks in the second half, especially in the third quarter. In the third quarter, they won the quarter 33-14. That kind of just set the tone for the entire half as they pulled away and blew the Mavericks out by 30. This I feel like for the Suns, this game was just like too critical for them to lose, especially at home. Just like every single game 5 when a series is tied 2-2 when you're playing it at home. It's just like you can't lose, otherwise you're going down 3-2 back to the opponent's arena, back in this case to Dallas. The Suns definitely didn't want that. Devin Booker had an amazing game, shot 11 of 20 from the field, 28 points and 7 rebounds. Like I said, that third quarter was huge, especially for Booker. He had 12 points in the third quarter. CP3, although he didn't score much, only had 7 points. But like always, CP3 is always going to dish the ball superbly. He had 10 assists. And then DeAndre Ayton, they just like dominated in the paint. The Suns did, kind of showing that the Mavericks don't have a real big man, and that definitely showed in Game 5. Ayton had 20 points and 9 rebounds. Mikal Bridges 14 points and 4 steals as well, which Suns defense was just amazing. Definitely locked up the Mavericks, especially in the second half. And Cam Johnson was massive off the bench. He had 14 points. Kind of showed up, which he didn't really show up in games 3 and 4, and it's great to see him bounce back after those games.
Yeah, exactly. It was a team effort from the Suns. Everyone was really getting involved offensively and defensively. They collectively clamped the Mavs, like you said, in the second half. And yeah, I think they just outplayed them thoroughly. And the game obviously was decided in the second half, and the Mavs didn't show up for it. So I think for the Mavericks, like, yeah, I mean, they didn't have the same like production that they had in games 3 and 4 from their role players, and I think that was the difference.
Yeah,
Obviously Luka got his points. He ended with 28. Jalen Brunson was solid with 21 points, but other than that, like Dorian Finney-Smith, who went off in game 4, only had 6 field goal attempts in this one and just 8 points. And yeah, Davis Bertans, I mean, he was solid in this one again, but just the other, like Spencer Dinwiddie, like he was a no-show in this game.
yeah.
I think he had 2 points in this game.
Yeah, and Bullock had 0 as well. So
exactly. So they just didn't get any production from some of their other guys. Like Maxi Kleber wasn't as impactful as he had been in previous games, and that's kind of the story of the Mavs, right? If their role players aren't involved, it's just hard for them to win. Even if Luka's putting up 45 points, which he did, or 35 points, which he did in games 1 and 2, and they just need to get everyone else involved. And I think a big part of that is obviously playing at home, because everyone's kind of more free, and their games are unlocked with their home crowds. And so we'll see if they're able to do it in game 6. Obviously a crucial one because it's an elimination game, but if everyone's sort of able to get involved and Luka's sort of facilitating like he had been in games 3 and 4, they're in a good position. And obviously they outplayed the Suns in Dallas. So they just got to revert back to that and sort of let game 5 sort of be in the past.
yeah, I feel like in game 5, one thing is that their ball movement wasn't as good, and they just didn't hit their shots, and that's kind of what you need in order to beat the Suns. They only had 9 assists, and I feel like Luka Doncic also talked about this in his post-game interview. They just need to move the ball better and play at a faster pace, which is what they did in games 3 and 4, and that's the reason this fast pace is why they won those games. They're kind of playing at at the Suns' pace here, and if they can play at this pace and move the ball better in game 6, then that would be huge, especially at home, if and they have a great chance to pull it off and take it back to Phoenix for game 7.
Yeah, and also I think a big story was obviously their 3-point shooting in this game too for the Mavericks, like 8 of 32 in this one, whereas in the last one I think they were 20 of 44. So
Mhm.
that's like a huge
Yeah,
difference.
definitely.
That's
Yeah.
a 36-point difference, and a big reason why they only scored 80 points in this game. Like they weren't as snipers as they were in game 4, and I mean that could be a downfall for them if they have to rely that heavily on 3-pointers just to win games. But we know they're capable of it, and that's kind of their system, is just 5 out and getting looks from 3 and sort of hitting them down, knocking them down. And yeah, I think they just gotta shoot the ball better, which will obviously come with playing at home, and they'll give themselves a chance in game 6. But we know what the Suns are capable of. They could easily just end it. If they have big games from Chris Paul, CP, and all those guys, they're a championship level team. So game 6 has a lot in store for sure. Definitely
Yeah,
more than game
definitely.
5.
Yeah, for sure. And super very much looking forward to it. Should we move on now?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's look at the most exciting, or at least the only one that wasn't a blowout in the game
Yeah.
5s. The Bucks Celtics one, but like this one was like a
Amazing
real
game.
thriller, an
Crazy
amazing game for sure. The Bucks win this one 110 to 107. They now lead the series 3-2, and a huge road win for them. They come back from 14 down in the fourth quarter. They outscored the Celtics 33 to 21 in the fourth, and they just stole this game down the stretch. They were down 105-99 with a minute 40 left, and then Giannis hits a massive 3 to cut it to 3.
Huge.
And then Jrue Holiday, with 40 seconds left in the game, hits a massive 3 to tie the game. And then Giannis gets fouled with 14 seconds left, while they're down 2, where Tatum had hit 2 free throws prior. He makes the first, and then he missed the second, and then the Bucks get the offensive board, and then Bobby Portis
That
with
was
the
wild.
putback layup to put them up 1. And then Jrue Holiday with the 2 clamps to end the game. First, he comes up with the massive stop while they're up 1, with the snatch block on Marcus Smart, and then he threw the ball off of Marcus Smart, and then it was Bucks ball. That was just like an unreal.
His IQ
play.
there was his IQ there to throw the ball off Marcus Smart was just out of the world.
Exactly. I mean, it was just it was a heads up play, and for him to even like have the heads up to sort of help Pat Connaughton, who was guarding Marcus Smart 1-on-1, and the risk he took there too to come over the top and get the block. It just showed why he's one of the best defenders in the league. And then right after they made 2 free throws, he gets the strip on Smart when they're up 3, to pretty much ice the game in the final seconds. So, I mean, the Bucks just gutted out this one down the stretch. Just made timely play after timely play, huge defensive stops, huge buckets. And yeah, I mean, it was just an amazing win for them.
Yeah, I think. What do you think about Jrue Holiday? Do you think he's one of the most clutch playoff defenders of all time? One of the most clutch defenders of all time?
I mean, with plays like this, you're obviously in that conversation. I don't know. I don't know what the other contenders are for the most clutch playoff defenders, but with what we've seen in these games, and also in their last playoff run where they won the championship, like he's solidifying himself as a top elite playoff performer for sure.
Definitely, for sure. And obviously, Giannis is just going to have another monster game. He's Giannis, one of the best players in the world, arguably the best player in the world. He had 40 points, 11 rebounds, dominated on both ends. Like you said, Ron, that 3 at the end was just so clutch.
Yeah,
He had that.
I think
Also
one big
that
thing about that 3 too, like for him to kind of just like without hesitation, just to pull
exactly.
that
Yeah,
3,
he has
like you
that
can kind of
confidence.
see that confidence. His game's evolved. Like he knows,
Exactly,
like for
for
him to
sure.
be like undisputed the best player in the world, he's gonna have to make plays like that and shoot the ball. So
Mhm.
he's taking such great leaps every year. Obviously with his playmaking as well. So I think that 3 sort of encapsulated how good he is as a player now.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a huge reason they won the game. They would have been down 6 with 2 minutes left, and it would have been Boston ball as well. He also had that insane block on Al Horford with 4 minutes left in the fourth, showing his clutchness and greatness on both sides of the ball. As we said before, Jrue Holiday, obviously he was massive. Not only on the defensive end, but also on the offensive end. He had 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. Didn't shoot the ball that well, but did still score 25 points, 24 points, and dish the ball well. He only shot 9 of 24. He made timely buckets down the stretch, and obviously those two massive stops. Those two stops on Smart. He's doing it to the Defensive Player of the Year, to giving him a taste of his own medicine.
Exactly.
A little personal. Maybe Jrue should have won.
I know Jrue. I mean, you can argue either way, but I mean, he's really showing why he's probably one of the best defenders in the league. And yeah, it seemed personal because to do that on the depoy, and it couldn't be like more of a perfect setup for him to kind of establish himself as the elite premier perimeter defender, guard defender. So yeah, like you said, like for him to do these plays, like especially like at this moment in the playoffs, like that's just clutch defense. And I think in general it kind of just shows like who the Bucks are. They have championship DNA, especially with how they played in the fourth quarter. They just stuck to their game plan. They didn't panic at all, like Giannis was saying. They just slowly chipped away at the lead and eventually just stole the game with a couple plays and a couple bounces that went their way. But yeah, they just prove why they're the defending champs. They're the team to beat in the East, in the league, even. And I mean, the Bucks just get a massive win on the road to go up 3-2, and now they have a chance to close it out at home, Game 6.
Yeah, and I mean for the Celtics, I feel like it's just a bad not a great loss after being up double digits throughout the game and in the fourth, kind of similar to the Bucks in Game 4. They let the game slip on a few big possessions and just missed a few big rebounds, and it just gave the Bucks lots of second chance opportunities down the stretch to win the game. Like we said before, that Giannis threw 2 minutes left was it was actually off a Bucks offensive rebound, and then they didn't box out on Giannis's second free throw after he got fouled, which led to Bobby Portis's putback layup with 10 seconds left to get the Celtics down by 1. And then Marcus Smart getting stripped by Jrue Holiday down 1. That was tough. And then on that last possession down, that 3 missed by Tatum wide open, Marcus Smart could have thrown it to Jason Tatum, who was down the court and he was open, but I feel like he probably just didn't see him.
Yeah.
And then he didn't have enough time to pass it to him because Jrue Holiday was already there.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like in those last 2 possessions too, when Marcus Smart got stripped and got blocked, like the ball probably should have been in either Tatum or Brown's hands, especially in those situations. Like they're gonna get you a bucket. I don't think Marcus Smart's the guy to sort of get you the bucket there. And I'm sure Ime Udoka had a play written up where they were gonna get the ball eventually to Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. But I think to start off the possession and just to be safe that you get a shot by one of them, like you want the ball in their hands. And so I think, yeah, obviously Tatum and Brown were amazing in this game. They both had massive games. Tatum had 34, 6 boards and 4 assists, and Jaylen Brown had 26 points, 8 boards and 6 assists, and he had 16 in the third quarter.
He went crazy in that third.
Went crazy, just wasn't missing. He was taking some ridiculously tough threes, and just mid-range shots. And but I mean, despite all of that, they were winning most of the game. They were in position to close it out. They were outplaying the Bucks through 3.5 quarters, and they just couldn't close it. And now it's just a crucial loss for them because they give up home court. Exactly. And now they're down 3-2, and now they have to win the Game 6 on the road to avoid elimination.
Yeah, it's definitely not the ideal situation for them to be in as they're going back to Milwaukee, being down 3-2. But I mean, they won Game 4 in Milwaukee. They could definitely do it again. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting Game 6 and a really good one, just like the rest of these.
Yeah, exactly. This was probably the most entertaining game for sure, and the most exciting.
Definitely, it was the only non-blowout, so obviously.
Exactly. Should we look at the last and final blowout, the blowout of the blowouts?
Let's do it. The blowout of the blowouts. We got the Warriors and the Grizzlies. This was a very interesting game. The Grizzlies won this one by 39 points, 134-95, although it could have been a lot more. But the Warriors still lead the series 3-2. And I mean, for the Grizzlies, they just dominated from the get-go, right off the gate, right out the gate. They were hitting their shots, taking advantage of Golden State's turnovers, and it just seemed like they played a perfect game and couldn't miss all game. You and I were actually watching the game together, and we're just like, "What is going on?"
It
Um,
felt like every time, like when the Grizzlies had the ball, they were pulling up from three from like 30 feet out and making
yeah,
it. And then every time the Warriors were on offense, the Grizzlies were getting a stop or getting a strip or something, and they were out in
yeah,
transition again. And it just felt like
mhm,
an endless cycle of those two plays. And
exactly.
eventually, it got to the point where they were up 55, which didn't even feel real.
Yeah,
But like
55
you couldn't
points. That's
even
insane.
be surprised though with the way the Grizzlies were playing and sort of the how quickly they were able to get up shots and the amount of threes they are making in the game was just unreal.
Yeah, and Jaren Jackson was a big factor. He had 21 points, 6 of 10 from the field, and 8 rebounds. Tyus Jones, he's becoming like a big, huge guy in replacement of Ja Morant. Shot 8 of 12 from the field, 4 of 7 from three, and also 21 points, along with 9 assists. And Desmond Bain seems to be coming out of his slump, which is scary for the Warriors. His back seems to be doing much better. Shot 6 of 12 from the field, 21 points. And ever since his return, Steven Adams has been crucial in just getting rebounds and dominating the paint. He had 13 rebounds, and then just all the Grizzlies, all the whole team just like produced for them. Dylan Brooks had 12, Brandon Clark 11, D'Anthony Melton 10. Zaire Williams is becoming a huge factor for the Grizzlies. He's just constantly hitting shots, making the right plays and big plays. Um, and then do you think the Grizzlies are better without Jaw? It's a hot question. It's going around.
I'm not gonna sound like a dumb basketball fan, so I'm gonna say no because he's Ja Morant. I
Mhm.
think a casual would probably say yeah because they're 21-6 without Ja. But I don't think we can go that far. Like it's Ja Morant. We're not gonna say that. That's just ridiculous.
I mean, the thing is, I feel like he holds the ball most of the time, so
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't really give these guys give all these guys a chance to do what they did in this game, which is probably a big reason why they went 21-6. But like you said, he's job and he's also like not as great as of a defender. He does get those nice blocks every once in a while, but I feel like their defense is just like really solid without him as well. But
You
I
could,
feel
yeah,
like
you could argue they have like a better flowing offense, I guess, or they have a better defense. But I mean, in terms
yeah,
of their
he's Ja
offense, like
Morant. Like
it's Ja
he's
Morant. Like the
exactly,
way
yeah.
he gets buckets, like how explosive he is, like he's getting them as many buckets. So I don't think their offense is any worse as it is with him. So
Mhm.
well, I mean, they're both I mean, the way they're playing without him is still like unbelievable. Like the way they're able to just fill all the holes that he provides them that they're missing without him. Like they're such a complete team. Like they play like a real team. It feels like
Yeah.
everyone's getting involved on every play, um, on offense and on defense. Like collectively, they're like they're getting deflections and stuff. They're playing great help defense, and then on offense, they're sharing the ball perfectly. And they're just setting each other up for like great looks, sharing the ball. So it's just they're a great team. They're a great team.
Yeah, they're definitely a great team. They also were just dominating the paint. They won the rebounding contest 55-37. Out offensive rebounded Golden State 18-4 and won the defensive rebounds 37-33 and then also scored 50 points in the paint compared to the Warriors 36 and then also had 37 assists, which is unbelievable. They move the ball insanely well, hit their shots. It's as simple as that. And 77 points in the first half is a franchise postseason record.
Yeah, I mean, they were just lights out on offense, and there's no surprise that they were able to score at the rate they were. They just weren't missing. They were getting great looks, though. It wasn't that they were just luckily making shots. Like they were getting good looks. Players were hitting shots, and it was pretty fun to watch. Sort of the way they were able to
Yeah,
get out in
definitely.
transition and just make everything. And
No,
sort
I
of
mean,
yeah, and the way they were clamping the Warriors too. Like you got to
yeah.
give your hats off to them.
Yeah, I mean, as Warriors fans, we were watching the game. We were a little depressed, but we kind of wanted the Grizzlies to keep going and trying to extend the lead because, like, I
Yeah,
mean, why not? It's just like kind of fun to see a team just hit so many
exactly.
shots, sink so many
We had
shots.
already lost at that point. It was already a written in L, so might as well see
Exactly.
the Grizzlies go for some
How much
history.
they
Maybe
score, yeah.
get the biggest margin of victory in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Obviously in the fourth quarter though, they just they were not their foot was not on the gas, but it's hard to sustain a 55-point lead, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, and from the Warriors, I mean, from the start, the game just didn't seem to be going their way. This is kind of becoming a story, like every game, just the turnover story.
Yeah,
Similar to a lot of games, they just turned the ball over way too much. This game, they had 22 turnovers. They also couldn't find the open guy, and if they did find the open guy, they just weren't making their open shots. But we can give credit to the Grizzlies defense though, as they showed intensity and hunger right from the jump. But I mean, turnovers are the main story. You can't turn the ball over 22 times and expect to win. Um, it's as simple as that, I think. Um,
yeah.
Rohan, what do you think about that?
I think exactly. I mean, that's the reason their offense wasn't getting going. Like they were giving the ball up too much. Grizzlies were just all up in their face, just getting deflections and stealing the ball, and they just couldn't put together enough offense throughout the game. Obviously, they couldn't get any stops either because the Grizzlies were just making everything. And so I don't think the game could have gone any more poorly for on both ends for the Grizzlies and for the Warriors. So they just had a rough night. But I think
Yeah,
they're kind of just gonna erase it from the memory. It's because a loss
exactly.
is just a loss at the end of the day. It could have been 55 points. It could have been 5 points, which Draymond said
That's
in his
just a
post game.
loss. Exactly.
So they're just gonna move on. They're gonna watch film. They're gonna see what they can do better. And obviously they have game 6 at home. So that's what they're waiting for. And they're gonna try and close it out in front of their home crowd.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, they just need to erase this game from their memory, and just go back to playing Warriors basketball in their home court in Game 6. It's simple as that, and um, yeah, look to close it out in six
Yeah.
games.
And but if they don't close it out, then
And going back
it
to
becomes
Memphis game 2,
very,
it becomes
very
very interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
it's risky, but they're playing with fire right now.
Mhm.
They need to close it out as quick as possible if they want to get out with the series. Otherwise, going to Game 7 in Memphis, there's no telling what happens in that game. It's a 50-50, even without Jaw. Like the
Yeah.
Grizzlies can
Oh,
easily pull
definitely.
that out. So
Definitely, for sure. Yeah. I
still
feel
gonna
like
be interesting.
it's a kind of maybe a must win for Golden State. Can't afford
Yeah,
to have a game 7 in Memphis. I feel like it's going to be tough for them to win that one. So hopefully they can close it out at Chase Center in game 6 on Friday. And yeah, looking forward to it.
definitely. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for us. That's all the games, and obviously a lot of blowouts. Hopefully, Game 6 is a little bit more competitive games. And yeah, I mean, obviously elimination games for 4 teams, closeout games for the other 4 teams, and now we're in the business end of this second round, and the conference finals are going to be upon us sooner than later.
Yeah, and it's crazy that all these games are going to game 6.
Yeah,
What a time to be alive. These playoffs are amazing. Super
exactly.
excited to Yeah, we love this time of year. We love the playoffs.
Exactly, and we like deep series as well. So these are high intensity games now, and should be very interesting. But yeah, that pretty much does it for us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys after the Game 6s.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys. Peace out.
All right, see you.